Hello and welcome to Saturday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic, where today we're going to be, marking a debut for a new constructor to the channel. This puzzle is by the Cogito. I think that's from the expression cogito ergo sum, which I learnt as a schoolboy. I think therefore I am, René Descartes. So really that should be cogito ergo Sudoku nowadays. I think therefore I Sudoku. That seems much more appropriate, and it's perfectly acceptable, of course, to use Sudoku as a verb. To Sudoku, that's what I do all the time. Anyway, it's called Staggered. I guess that might be because of these Renban lines in columns 1, 2, 8 and 9, but we'll have to see. I'm looking forward to trying this. The testing reports say that this is a brilliant puzzle. It's been recommended to us a couple of times actually, so we should be in for a treat as always. And I have a big bit of news for you. I can finally, I think, tell you about our Christmas gift to those of you who are patrons of the channel over on Patreon. Very soon, in the next few days, we are going to be releasing this for you. The Puzzle Pyramid. Now it's a quite staggering Sudoku stroke puzzle hunt by Peter Venus, by Aspartagus and by Panthera. And I think they also had help from Pulverizing Pancake as well. But I mean, it's just an extraordinary thing. You need to play this when it comes out, so please look out for it. You can see some of the puzzles are sort of being teased here in this thumbnail, and yeah, you'll learn a lot about pyramids as well, believe me, as you go through it. There's an awful lot of Egyptian mythology in it and all sorts of other things. It's an absolute masterpiece, and yeah, we're looking forward already to the reactions. We're just trying to work out what prize we should give. Yeah, it's coming soon. Right, let's get to the rules of Staggered, and I'll read you them now. We've got normal Sudoku rules apply. Red cells in columns 1, 5 and 9 index, i.e. give, the column in which the digits 1, 5 and 9 respectively appear in their respective row. All possible red cells in columns 1, 5 and 9 are given. Let's actually just stop there and check that we understand what's going on. Because normally when I've seen this sort of constraint before, the whole column has been highlighted. Here we've only got 3 digits in column 1. Yeah, okay, so I think it works the same way as it does for normal 1, 5, 9 puzzles, but basically we only get 3 digits. So imagine this cell here was a 6. Then this is telling us the position of the 1 in this row. It must be in the 6th column, so we would have to put a 1 into that cell. Let's try and do an example with the 5s. So let's imagine this square here was a 3. I think it can be a 3. And that square there, so that would be telling us the 5, because this is the 5th column, so it's indexing the 5s. The 5 needs to appear in the 3rd column of this row, so this would be a 5. Apparently this sort of puzzle makes a lot more sense to computer programmers than it does to mere mortals. And I have to say, I am definitely a mere mortal when it comes to these sorts of logic, or this sort of logic. Let's try a 9 in this column. Let's make this square here a 7. If that's a 7, it's saying that the 9 in this row here must appear in the 7th column. Oh, that's a terrible, terrible, terrible choice. Let's instead use 4, and then I can put a 9 here, look. And that would be sensible, because obviously I couldn't put a 9 there because there was a 9 here. So I managed to probably pick the only digit that would have been illegal. I suppose 5 would also not have worked, because this square here can't be a 9. But there we go. So that's the first bit of the rules. We have got more rules. And the digits on each purple line must be a consecutive set of digits, which can be in any order. So the purple lines are Renban lines. So let's imagine this square here was a 1. If this square here is a 1, then this line must be consisting of the digits 1, 2, 3 and 4, because it has to be a consecutive set. Now, what you don't do, unlike with thermometers where you always have to sort of ascend from a bulb, here the 1, 2, 3 and 4 can be in any order. We just have to make sure those digits are the digits 1, 2, 3 and 4. So that would be a legitimate way to organise that line. And finally, adjacent digits on a green line must differ by at least 5. So this is a German Whispers line, this is a German Whispers line, and we've got to make sure digits are at least 5 apart. So imagine this was a 9 here. This square here would have to be at least 5 different from 9. So it's got to be 4 or less is what we're learning. So this square here would be a 1, 2, 3 or 4, and then this square here would bounce upwards again and have to be a relatively high digit depending on what this was. So if that was a 2, this square here would have to be 5 different at least from 2, so it would have to be a 7 or an 8 now, because it can't be a 9, there's already a 9 here. And that's how all of the rules of the puzzle work. Do have a go. The way to play, of course, is to click the link under the video, as usual. Now I get to play. Let's get cracking. And he says, let's get cracking without a clue what to do. Now, I suppose we use the long Renban line, do we? How long is that? That is a 7-cell Renban line. So that must contain 7 consecutive digits. Now, if you're selecting 7 consecutive digits from the string of digits 1 to 9, you're always going to have to select the digits 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Because there's obviously, if you try and miss out, for example, a 3 from this line, then to have a consecutive sequence, you would have to select 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and that won't work. Okay, that doesn't seem to do anything. What about that line then? That line is less long, but we can still deduce it must have a 5 on it somewhere, because it's 5 cells long. So if I'm selecting 5 digits from the sequence 1 to 9, you can see that you're always going to have to pick up a 5. Even if you start at 1, you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you start at 9, you're going to go 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. So you always have to have a 5 on this line. Okay. Oh no, what does this mean? Wow, what does it mean? It can't be the Whispers. The Whispers are too short, I don't think. Oh, okay. I suppose this line here can't be a 7, 8, 9 line, because it would need a 4th digit, and that digit would have to be a 6, which is already in the middle of the grid. So this is selecting 4 digits out of the 5 digits, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this has a 2, 3, and a 4 on it. Okay, no, I don't think we know anything as a result of that. So, okay, so what is it that I'm meant to be thinking about here? Is it the red digits somehow? Oh yeah, it is, right. Okay, very, very cute, very cute. Let's think about column 1. Now, which digit is important for the red digits? Well, when we're looking at column 1, column 1's red digits are indexing the 1s. So, but we know there's a 1 in column 1 somewhere. That's the rules of Sudoku tell us that. So wherever the 1 is, it's telling us it indexes to, it needs to be in the column 1 position. So it's indexing to itself. So it's correct. So the 1 in this column is in a red cell. And if it's in a red cell, the red cell is overlapping perfectly with the Renban. So as there's a 1 in one of those 3 cells, that means this Renban is now known. It's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Renban. And that's actually very, very cute. So now I can get rid of 3, look, from those cells just by using little old Sudoku. You know how little I tend to use Sudoku in Sudoku puzzles, but there I have actually done some Sudoku. So 3 is in one of those 2 cells, both of which are red. Now they're indexing the 1 in their row, so if this was a 3, you'd have a 1 here, and if this was a 3, you'd have a 1 here. So we now know there is a 1 in one of those 2 positions. Now, I might be able to repeat that logic with... Yeah, oh, this is actually really clever. This is really clever. I'm going to move on to column 5, where again, wherever the 5 appears in this column, it will be giving a correct 159 clue because it's indexing the column in which the 5 appears. Well, obviously the 5 in this column is in the 5th column, so it is axiomatically correct. Therefore it is red, but you can't put 5 on a German whispers line, because if you do, the cells that are adjacent to it have to be at least 5 cells away, 5 digits away, so they'd have to be either 0 or lower, or 10 or higher, which won't work. And of course what that means is that once we get that there's a 5 in one of those 2 cells, we now know the nature of this Rembrandt line because 6 cannot go on it. So this Rembrandt line is 2, 3, 4, 5, and we know the 5 is in red, so the 5 is not here. And that means, I don't know what that means, but it means, well, I suppose, if we're going to get all good liffy about it, it means that I can pencil mark those cells as well. They have to be from 1, 7, 8 and 9 in the corners of box 5, because we've sort of got a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 quintuple in a cross shape in the middle of the box. So now this cell, which is on a Renban, has to, well, it could be 1 and 2, or it could be, if that's a 7, that could be a 6. So it actually has a few options. Okay. But let us continue on our journey to think about the digits that are always correct in their columns, because this is still going to give us more joy here. In column 9, the 9 in column 9 indexes to itself, so it needs to be red, and therefore it is on the long 7-cell Rembrandt line. Therefore this Rembrandt line is also now known. Because it's got a 9 on it, and it must be consecutive digits, that is a properly pencil marked set of 7 cells now. And we know the 9 is in one of those 3, so the 9 can come out of those 4. Oh, and the 9 is not in that one, look, because there's a 9 in the grid. So the 9 is now in one of 2 places. I'm not sure if we can see. I can see that one's not a 3 by the medium of Sudoku. So perhaps there's more. Is there? Oh, I see. This one can't be 6, look. Oh, and this one here can't be 5 either, because that would be telling us that the 9 needs to go in column 5, which it can't, and this cell can't be a 5. So this becomes 3, 4, 7, 8, or 9. Oh God, I was about to do the same, or try the same logic with this cell. I've got to be really careful here. It'd be very easy to think that, you know, the 159 rule applies to the whole column as it normally does in these puzzles. But this cell it's only bound by the negative constraint, isn't it? So if, for example, if this cell turned out to be a 7 and that cell, oh God, I've done it again. If that cell turns out to be a 6 and this cell here turned out to be a 9, that would need to have been red, and it's not red, so this arrangement is impossible. So the negative constraint is much less powerful. Wow, okay. So what on earth do we do now? I have not got a clue. Oh no. Right, so we can... What can we do? Where is it we're meant to be looking here? I'm looking at these red cells trying to see if I've got... yeah, okay, I can restrict this one very, very slightly. If this was a 4, that would have to be a 9, and that can't be a 9. So that's not a... Oh, it's not a 4, I want to say. Oh, and it can't be a 7, actually, because that would put a 9 here. So that square has become restricted. It's 3, 8, or 9 now. So the 9 in row 5 is in either the 3rd column, the 8th column, or the 9th column. But down, oh yeah, no, I was about to say down here I can't do any more, but I can't put 9s in those two positions, so 7 and 8 have to come out of this. 7 has to come out of this because that would put a 9 above it. So actually what we've got to do is whittle, isn't it? We've got to do some whittling in this puzzle. And whittling, I mean, it's not doing anything or whittling, but it does at least make me feel like I'm making some progress. Let's try whittling this column instead. So this square, if it was a 1, it would itself be a 1. I realise that that sentence is profoundly obvious, but hopefully those of you who have studied 159 puzzles know why I said it. Now, if this is a 2, that cell is a 1. That looks fine. If it's a 4, it's not a 4 because then that cell would be a 1. So we can limit that somehow. And if it's a 5, that cell would be a 1. Aha! Aha! Right. I have now noted something. Wow. Wow, this is really clever. This is really clever. Kogito, this is impressive. Right. Why is this not a 5? Well, if it's a 5, it's indexing the 1 in its row to the 5th column. So I put a 1 here. But what that's doing is placing a 1 in a very interesting position in the 5 column, because this should be a correct clue. Because it's saying that the 5, if this was red, it would be correct, because the 5 is appearing in the first column. So because all possible red cells are given, this needs to be red if this is a 5, and it's not. So that's telling us this is not a 5. So we can get rid of 5 from here. And this has become a 1 or a 2, which means the 1 is definitely in one of those two positions in box 1 now. And I think we can repeat that logic coming down this column. Well, obviously, actually, this cell can't be a 5 because that would be saying this square needs to be simultaneously a 1 and a 6. And as I said before, there are no such thing as Schrödinger cells in Sudoku, so that is not 5. But I think we can extend that logic by looking at this square here and saying, can this be 5? No, because it would put a 1 here, which should be red from its columns perspective. So 5 now on this Renban line is in one of those two positions. Wow, this is stunning. Right, I can see about 3 deductions that we can make from that. Let's go through them. The simplest deduction is that now the 5 in box 4 and the 5 in box 5 are limited to 2 of these 4 cells. Now therefore we can ask where 5 goes in this row. It's definitely not in those cells, it's definitely not in those cells, and it doesn't seem to be able to be in that cell. So that means 5 is in a domino in box 6, and it's not in those two positions. So that's deduction number 1. Now the second deduction is that now, because there is a 5 in one of those two positions, one of these two squares is going to have to be a 2, because it's going to index. If this is a 5, this needs to be a 2, because it's a red cell, so it's correctly indexing the column in which the 5 appears. If this is the 5, this needs to be a 2. So one of those squares is a 2, but we also know one of those squares is a 5. So this is a 2-5 pair now, which means those two squares are not 2 anymore. So this, right, so this, this is gorgeous. This is a 3-4 pair, so that's not 3 or 4. Now I've got a 1-2 pair on my Renban, which means 1-2 comes out of all of those. That becomes 4-5, and this becomes 3. QED. We're doing all the Latin today. So that means that square's a 1, because this is a red cell indexing the 1. That's no longer a 1. So whichever of these is 1 is itself a 1. I know I've done it again, but whichever one is a 2 is indexing a 1 next to it in the second column. So we've either got a 2 here and a 1 here, or we've got a 2 here and a 1 here. So the 1 in this row is in one of two positions. It's either exactly there or it's here, because this has become a 2. Now, oh, 3-4 pair here, so that's not a 3 anymore. Whoops, not a 3 anymore. So now, if this is an 8, the 9 is here. If it's a 9, the 9 is exactly there. So the 9 is in one of two places. In box 6. Okay. So what do we do next? Can we do the same? Can we do the same thing we just did in this column, or is that? What I'm wondering is it possible? It's not possible, is it, for either of these two squares to be a 5? Because I think it's the same point. If I make that a 5, I have to put the 9 here, and that is creating a perfect clue from this column's perspective for where the 5 goes. It goes in the 9th column, so this should be red, and it's not red, so that's not possible. So that's not 5. Oopsie, that's not 5, and this is also not 5. So the 5 in this column now. Oh, we don't know. Oh, we do. We can get the 5 in the column by thinking about the fact it must be on the Rembrandt line, and it's not in those two cells. Yes, so the 5 in this column is in one of two places. Oh, right, yeah, but whichever one it is doesn't tell us. It doesn't tell us where the 9 goes. In fact, we can go further than that. It mustn't tell us where the 9 goes. Oh yeah, I keep looking at this 9 here and thinking, oh, I can put 7 in here, but I can't. Okay, so that was nearly useful. We've locked 5 into one of those two cells. Is that doing anything for us? I don't think so. It's very awkward to say that 5 is in one of those two positions. But now, how do we do the same thing in this column then? What is that telling us? That's telling us these two squares cannot be 1s and 9s, isn't it? Because if that square is a 1, it's indexing the 5 correctly, and now the 5 is indexing the 1 correctly and should be red, which it isn't. So these two squares are not 1s and 9s. They're not 2s, 5s or 6s either. So these two squares are a bit restricted. They have to be 3, 4, 7 or 8. Oh, this is so gorgeous, right. Well, they're not 4s, because they're on Whispers lines. And if you put a 4 on a Whispers line, what cells do you have to flank it with? Or what digits do you have to flank it with? These have to be 5 different from 4, so they both have to equal 9. That's not going to work. So actually, we can do better than this. We can get rid of 4s from those squares. So this... Gosh, it would be very useful if we could get rid of 3s from these squares. But 3 would have to go with 8 and 9 on its Whispers line. Can't see why that's impossible immediately. In fact, it would be quite useful if it was true. And if... Right, okay, well, let's actually pencil mark this then. Oh, Alexa. I didn't say anything to Alexa. I don't know why Alexa turned herself on. Someone will have to explain. Right, these two squares. If this is 3, these two squares have to be an 8-9 pair. Oh, hang on. Does that affect this then? That's a red number. That's almost looking likely, actually. Because this is column 4, this is column 6. This still has the ability to be a correct clue. Okay, I don't think we can. Well, we can't use that to say these have to be 8 and 9, but it does make me think that it's very possible this is a 3. If this is a 7 or an 8, these two digits have to be 5 away, so they have to be a 1, 2, or a 3, and they can't be a 3. So these squares are either 1, 2, 8, or 9. Which is almost interesting. In fact, it is interesting. No, that isn't. That is interesting. Good grief. Right, now I'm going to look at column 5. And I am going to allege, perhaps incorrectly... Oh, good grief. I've done this. I've done it. I've done it. Wow. Right. Right. Well done. Well done, brain. This square here is a 1. Because I said so. No, that's not the real reason. That's what somebody in comments asked us to say the other day. Well, I've said it now. No, it's not a 1 because I said so. It's a 1 purely by logic. But watch this logic. This is really beautiful. Now, we know this duo of cells. I'm going to highlight them. I'll make them yellow, actually. This duo of cells is either a 1-2 pair or an 8-9 pair. So there's always either a 1 in these or a 9. Now look at the central box. We've got 1s and 9s arranged in the same positions. So imagine these were 1s for a moment. Then where are we going to put the 1 in this column? Well, the answer is here. It has to go there. What if there was a 9 in one of these cells? Where are we going to put the 9 in this column? Well, the answer is only in one cell again because of this 9. So it's going to have to be here. So this square is always a 1 or a 9, depending on whether this is a 1-2 pair or an 8-9 pair. But look at this. This square here is a 3-4 or a 6. So where does the 9 go in this row? Well, either here, here, or here. It must go in one of those positions. So this cannot be a 9 and has to be a 1. Yeah, it wasn't because I said so, although I did say so, and it is. That square is a 1. Can't index the 5 because it's not red. I suppose we now know this is not a 5. That's something we do know. But what we do know, of course, is the reason this is a 1, or this becomes a 1 as a result of this having to be a 1-2 pair. This can no longer be an 8-9 pair, because if it is, I need to put 9 in that cell, which I cannot do. So these squares are a 1-2 pair, which means that, oh, that square is 7 or 8 now. Okay. What else is that doing for us then? Is it doing anything else? I suppose it's placing 5 in this row in one of 2 places. Yes. Well, that's doing something, because we said the 5 in column 9 was either here or here, so it's not there anymore. So that means that this 5 must go there. 5 goes here. Now what's that doing? That's saying this cannot be a 9, but it never could have been a 9 anyway. So we're probably getting stuck now. This square now can't be a 2, so that square can't be a 1, I suppose. That's interesting. Oh, right, yeah, I've got it again. We're on a roll here. This square now, how could this be a 4 or a 6? It would be indexing to a digit that's a 1 or a 2. It needs to index the 9, so it can't be 4 or 6. So this is an 8 or a 9, this is an 8 or a 9. We can remove 8s and 9s from the rest of the Renban. And it's similar to the 1s and 2s over here. Whichever one of these is 8 has a 9 next to it. And whichever one is 9 is itself therefore a 9. So the 9s are in this pattern. And we can remove 9s from those cells. And you're right if you're thinking that's useless. Oh, bobbins. Okay. Okay. What does this mean? This means that I don't know. I don't know what this means. 9 in column 5 can't be there, so it's up here somewhere. So this is not a 9. Does that matter for this domino? I don't think it does. I mean, it's nice to remove a 9 from here, but that could still absolutely be 8, and that can still be 9, and that be 8. Okay, I see what we can do. We can get this digit now. This digit cannot be 5, because if it's 5, it's indexing a 5 into one of those squares where I've already got a 5. Good grief! So this is a 3, indexing a 5 in the 3rd column. Oh, look at this. Okay, there's loads going on now. Well, maybe not loads, but there's another 5 I can now place up here. This 5 forces the 5 to go there. So now, and now I ask where 5 goes in box 2, and by Sudoku of all things, it's got to go in that cell. Now I ask where 5 goes in box 8, and by Sudoku it goes in this cell. Sorry, interruption, somebody at the door. We seem to be having about 3 zillion deliveries from Amazon during the days at the moment. And I'm on my own in the house, so I had to go and deal with that. Anyway, back to the pack. What were we doing? We were doing 5s apparently. We were doing 5s, and we got a 5 here, and that is telling us what? It is telling us that I've no idea. I've got to totally remember. I've got to totally remember what we were doing. Oh, this is so frustrating. We were having a think about, goodness me, I've totally forgotten what on earth my train of thought was. Let's go back a bit further. What were we doing? We were going, we got a 3 here, which led us to a 5 here. And that led us to a 5 here. Okay, so this 3, we've not really used this properly yet, have we? Because that's on a German whispers line. So that's got to be an 8 and a 9 on the whispers line. I see. Right, now my head is sort of getting back into this. If that's an 8-9 pair, the thing we should be asking ourselves is, what's that digit? Because that's indexing the 9 in this row. And the 9 can't go in those 2 squares anymore, so it's not a 4 or a 6. That square is a 3, which means that square is the 9. Which means that seems we have to put a 9 in one of those 2 cells. We've got to put a 9 in one of those 2 cells. Let's check pencil marks to see if we can do better than that. We can I was wondering whether I could put an 8 on this Renban line, but I think I can. I don't have to have a 9 on it. It could go with a 7. So, okay, so we need to do something else that's clever now. And what is that clever thing we're going to be able to do? It is, I don't know. Oh, rather than asking about from this direction and 8s, why don't I ask from that direction and 2s? Where does 2 go in this box? 2 can't go on the Renban line because it would need a 3 or a 1 with it, so that square's a 2. Oh, I was about to say now 4 can't go on the Renban line, but 4 couldn't go on the Renban line anyway because there's a 4 in one of those. So there's a 4 in one of those cells, a 4 in one of these cells. 1 has to make its home in the bottom of box 9. Oh, that's quite interesting. 3 is now coming off the rest of this long Renban, so 3 comes out of those cells. Oh, good grief. Right. Right. That is interesting for two reasons, one of which is a slightly embarrassing reason. And the embarrassing reason is I think, have written 1 and 2 into these squares a slightly long time ago, possibly very close to the start of the puzzle, because those two squares rather elegantly, well, let's think about these two squares in the context of the Renban line. These two cells see the entirety of the Renban line. So whatever this is, if this was a 4, for example, you now can't put 4 on that Renban line at all, because it sees those 2 in the column, those 2 in the column, and those 3 in its box. So whatever you put into these two squares has to be digits that aren't on the Renban line, which is why these are a 1-2 pair. And I've only just noticed that because I was looking at this 4-6-7 triple and wondering about similar geometry, whether I could rule cells out from being 4-6-7. I think that cell's interesting. But let's just check this 1-2 pair now, because that is doing what? Well, it's eliminating a 1 from that square. It's putting a 2 into one of 2 places in box 4. Okay, well that's actually a bit of a relief to me. I don't think this 1-2 pair is doing any particular magic. So this column still needs 4s, 6s and 7s in it. Can we get rid of anything from those cells? I don't think so. Now that means, yeah, I want to look at this square, because this square was what originally got my thinking about the geometry of this line. Whatever this square is, let's make that blue for a moment. If you put a 4 in it, you now can't put a 4 on the Renban line anymore again. Same with 6, same with 7. So this square is not 4, 6, 7, and from its row it's not lots of other things either. So this square here has to be an 8 or a 9. And that's an 8-9 pair in row 2. And, oh, I see what one thing that's doing is it's meaning that square can't be a 9 anymore. So that square's a 9. Although I'm thinking when this was an 8 or a 9, I could have done that way anyway. So I don't think that digit has actually done a great deal for us. I might be maligning it unfairly, but I'm not seeing what it's doing. It's getting rid of 9 from that square now, which means that cell's a 9. My phone is buzzing. Let me just check that. That's fine. Okay. So, have we learnt more about the world than we knew before? That's the next question. This row, perhaps? We need 4s, 6s and 7s into this row. So let's put that in and see if that tells us anything new about world affairs. It tells us that, well, that's not a 6. So in this column we need 4s, 7s and 8s. That is therefore not an 8. Oh, right, that's it. Okay, so this 8-9 was doing something. It was making me, well, it wasn't making me. It should have made me ask the question, where does 8 go in column 5? Because it appears it can only go at the top. That doesn't do anything to our German whispers, because the German whispers was already restricted by this 3 here. But it does mean, I think it means 8's in one of those 2 cells in box 1. Oh, I tell you the other thing it means. It's indexing the 5, isn't it? In the row, it's a red digit, so that square's got to be a 5. That is doing absolutely diddly squat. No, I aligned it unfairly. That's now a 5. How many 5s have we got? Answer, several. Oh, I see. We've just got this little configuration to figure out. Oh, hang on. I've got a 4-6-7 triple in box 3. I don't know where that's come from and how long it's been there for, but now we've got a 1-2-3 triple in the rest of the box. And we seem to have 1s over here. Is that correct? Yes, it is correct, because whether this is a 1 or a 2, you end up with a 1 in that domino. So there is no 1 over here. There is a 1 here. That means that square's a 1 at the bottom of the grid. We've got a 2-3 pair here now. So that's, oh, I see that's bouncing back to box 1. This is ridiculously brilliant, this puzzle. That's now a 1, that's a 2, that's a 1. 2. Now, 2, yes, where does 2 go in box 1? It has to go there by Sudoku. Fancy making me do Sudoku in a Sudoku puzzle. It's outrageous. Now, what can we do next? We shall use the power of magic to tell us that, I don't know, we're probably going to have to do more Sudoku, aren't we, I think. Where are we going to get our Sudoku deductions from? Can I do this 8 and 9? Have I indexed everything that I can index? Let's just work out. 1 is indexing itself, 2 is indexing 1, 3 is indexing 1, 8 indexing 5. One of these is indexing the 5 there, the other one is indexing itself. 3 is indexing 5, 3 is indexing 9. That's, oh, and this form a pair, so we don't know anymore. Row 5. Yeah, row 5 actually. I keep forgetting this 3-4 pair. So row 5, I've only got 7s, 8s, and 9s to place. So that square is a 7 or an 8. And that square is a 7, 8, or a 9, I think. 7, 8. So this Renban can't be a 7, 8 now. Is that helpful? It might actually be worth pencil marking this Renban now, because I've got this 2-3 pair that I didn't have before. Can we do anything with this? The other thing I'm noticing is that row 9 is very congested. I've got to put 4s, 6s and 7s into those cells. Okay. No, I can't really work out what that means. What? Okay, well, I think we'll come back to this Renban then. So what have we got? We've got to put 4, 6, 7 or 8 onto it. But it can't have 8 on it, because then this digit would have to be a 7 or a 9, and that's either going to break this cell or this cell. So, oh, right, hang on. Yeah, okay, well that is interesting then. Because that seems to indicate this square has to be an 8. Because I had 8s pencil marked into those 2 squares of... Yes, I did, of box 1. So this not being an 8 matters. That square becomes an 8. That square's not an 8 now. So this square is 6 or 7. So that square can't be a 9. Oh yeah, this is important. There's lots going on all of a sudden. There now must be a 7 on this Renban line, which means that square's not a 7, because it's either 6, 7 or 7, 8. But more importantly, I think, this 8 is pushing an 8 off this line and down into the corner with the 4s. So that is a 4-8 pair in the bottom of the grid. And there's an 8-9 pair looking at it, so that's an 8. That's a 4. 6, 7 pair in row 9. These 2 squares now are a 6, 7 pair as well. Oh, which we could have got before. These squares are 6, 7 and 9 to complete that column. That's not a 9. And is that important? This square is now, if this is a 4, this can't be a 5. This has to be a 3. If it's a 6, this can't be a 5 again. It has to be a 7. And if it's a 7, this has to go downwards and be a 6. So we've got 3, 6 or 7 into this cell. Okay, it's still not done, you rotten thing. You rotten thing. Alright, let's have a look at this box. We need... Oh, we can place 8. We can place 8 in that box by Sudoku. Oh, that's lovely. Right, so that's a 9. This is an 8. This is a 9. So that's a 7 now by Sudoku. So that becomes a 4-6 pair, which is very beautiful for this square, which now sees a 4-6 pair on its own rem band, so it can't repeat. So that's a 7. Those two squares lose their ability to be 7. That loses its ability. That's a 6. So that's a 7. Aha! Which, well, that square should be now known. Yeah, it's not 6 or 7, it's 4. And 4 can only go with 3 on its renban. So now 4 comes out of this square. We get a 6-7 pair, a 3-4 pair. And now that's a 7, so this square's an 8. So this is a 6 or a 7. I feel like we've got lots of cells in the puzzle that are 6s or 7s. I've got to put a 3 in this box. It's got to go there. That 3 fixes the 3 and the 2. I've got to put a 2 in box 9 and a 4 in box 9. And a 4 and a 6 in box 3. That 6 is giving me a 6 and a 7. That square's now a right in. That's an 8, I think. Which means this square's not an 8. This square's not a 7. Come on. Come on, crack you what's it. It must be close to cracking, I think. This is a 6 or a 7, isn't it? Wow, that's not resolved. What about that square being a 6? Yes, that gets us some more joy. 6s and 7s go in. 6 comes in here. 6 and 4 go in. 4 and 5 go in. Here we go. 5 and 2 go in. 2 and 1 go in. So that's the 1 in box 5. That's a 1-2 pair. 2 has to make an appearance in this box. It now has to be there. 1 is not here. What are those two squares? Oh, this must be a gimme. That's a 4. These two squares have got to be 3 and 7. That looks good, actually, because that's a 7, that's a 3, that's a 3, that's a 4, that's a 7, that's a 6, that's a 6, that's a 7. We think we're on the home stretch now. 4 goes in here. That must be a 9. That should be a 7. This square is... Oh no! Oh no! Oh no, no, no! I've broken it. You silly man. This is a deadly pattern. 8s and 9s. You can't tell which way round they go. German whisper. Double 8. This could be double 8 or double 9. What on earth have I done wrong there? Everything else looks correct. Oh, good grief. It's the negative constraint. That... I am staggered. I am staggered. The cogito. I am staggered. This is a 4. So if this was a 9, then this 4 would be red and be correct. So it's not red, therefore this cannot be a 9, and it's an 8, and that disambiguates that pattern. Oh my goodness me, that's click tick. Yes. Oh, that was evil. Absolutely evil, and I am staggered. That is a beautiful puzzle. My goodness me. There is an absolute stack of logic in there. It's very, very clever to sort of break up the 159s and just use a few different clues, and then to combine it with the rem bands is very clever as well, because you sort of, it forces the digits onto the rem band. But there's geometry in this, there's Sudoku in this, there's all sorts of clever stuff. Loved it, absolutely loved it. What a debut. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know how you got on in the comments. I do enjoy them, especially when they're kind, and we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.